My castaway this week is a singer. At the age of 14, she defied her father and forsook the pleasures of the local church choir in Manhattan for a career on the stage. It's a career that's lasted more than 60 years and made her the toast of Paris, London and New York. She's made famous such songs as Love for Sale, Solomon and Stormy Weather in cabaret, musicals and one-woman shows. She's acted in film and stage plays too. Exotic in looks, precise and polished in her musical phrasing, she can, at the age of 81, look back on a life in which new audiences have always come to love her as the old ones died away. She is Elisabeth Welch. Elisabeth, that makes you sound something like a survivor anyway. Is that how you feel?
A veteran, as they put it sometimes, which really ages you.
But it's amazing, the people that you've known, the list is very impressive, isn't it? From Picasso and Cocteau to Paul Robeson and Noel Coward.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel as if they were all of another age, or are they still very much part of you?
Oh, no, they're part of me. They're part of me. My life is all one sort of thing.
Do you sometimes feel you're the only one of them left, as it were?
Well, with a laugh. I mean, I don't do it seriously. I like to laugh, at everything. I mean, even at my age, everybody says, why do you tell them? I said, well, everybody knows. So you can't lie, unfortunately.
So age is kind of irrelevant to you?
Absolutely.
Why? Why doesn't it bother you?
I don't know, it never has. I was always older from the age of sort of 14, 15, when I was sort of a young girl. Coming up, I was already doing social work with children, you see. And everybody thought I was 3 and 4 years older. And I used to pretend I was as well, you see.
So what kind of music are you going to take to this desert island with you? What would you like to surround yourself with when you're all alone?
Oh, mostly with singers that I know personally and those that I love and don't know.
All of which bring back happy memories for you?
That's really it, yes.
So what's the first one?
The first one is going to be Elaine Stritch singing Broadway Baby.
And why do you want that?
Because I love her noise, and I'm sure she'll rouse me and perhaps rouse a passing ship. Maybe I'll be rescued.
I'm just a Broadway baby, walking off my tired feet, pounding 42nd Street to be in a show. Oh, Broadway baby, learning how to sing and dance, waiting for that one big chance to be in a show. Oh, gee, I'd like to be on some marquee, all twinkling lights, a spark to pierce the dark, from Battery Park to Washington Heights. Someday, maybe, all my dreams will be repaid. Heck, I'd even play the maid to be in a show.
Elaine Stritch singing Broadway Baby from Stephen Sondheim's Follies. That'll rouse them up. Have you sung that one, Elisabeth?
No, I haven't. Who could follow that, for goodness sakes?
Not quite your type of song.
Well, yeah, I'd love to sing it, but it'd be different. But no. I'm not going to fight that.
What do you look for? What have you always looked for in a song? What's important to you?
A lyric you read first, and then you read the music. And if the lyric and the music are lovely, then it's a song for me.
What would you class then as the best lyrics ever written? What are your favourite pieces?
Well, I mean, over the years I've sung too many, but I like my composers. I like Cole Porter, of course. I like Rodgers and Hart. I like Gershwin and Jerome Kern. I mean, how can you fail if you got any of those?
You haven't mentioned Irving Berlin in all this.
My goodness gracious. I hope you'll forgive me. Of course, he's very important in my life.
Well, he gave you your big break.
He did. His mention did that for me going into the New Yorkers, where I sang Love for Sale.
How did that come about? That was, what, 1930?
That was 1931, actually. I was singing in cabaret in New York, And Peggy Hopkins Joyce, nobody's old enough to remember her except me, but she was a great lady of society. She made her own society, but she married about 8 or 9 millionaires, and she was very, very famous for that. And she used to come into our club, and she brought me a song one night and said, there's a Broadway show coming in, Elisabeth, and this song is in it. I think you should learn it, and it sounds like you see. So it was Love for Sale. So I learned it, and by the time the show opened, I started singing it. And then a fortnight after the show opened or so, these 3 men came in just as we were getting ready to go home, about 2:30 in the morning. And they called me back and said, get the boys on the stand. There were only 5 of us anyhow. And I sang Love for Sale for them. And they turned out to be Ray Getz. Ray Getz was the producer of the show, the New Yorkers, in which the song was. And Monty Woolley, who directed it. And the other guy was Irving Berlin, you see. So they came to the club, as I said, and heard me singing it.
And you sang it as a kind of tragic song.
Well, that's what I feel it as, because I'm on their side, you see.
What, the
well,
prostitutes?
not now, perhaps, because everybody... But in those days, I used to know them all in Paris. They had children that they were putting through school and all that sort of thing, and one doesn't know about that, you see.
But why did they have to change all the sets on that show for you to be able to sing it?
They didn't change the sets. That was the silly thing about the whole thing, because they were worried about if we bring this girl in who's coloured, you see, and the other child was blonde and pink, you see, how are we going to present her? And of course, there was a great conference, I believe, for about 8 days. How are we going to bring in this coloured girl singing Love for Sale? And the scene was just a front cloth curtain in a dark sort of set with a lovely moonlight glow to it. And it had a sign, Madison Avenue, which is the chic avenue in New York. And in the center of the stage was a canopy with a commissioner standing outside with his red coat and all his badges and things. And so all they did was they took that out and they changed the name Madison Avenue to Lenox Avenue, where the Cotton Club was. The canopy had a French name on it, like Club Marseillais or something, and they changed that to the Cotton Club.
And was that because they didn't think they could have a black prostitute on Madison Avenue?
Down on Madison Avenue, absolutely, yes. And also they were covering me as well, because she wouldn't have been.
But you could have found that a bit offensive.
I could have, but I didn't think of it that way, because I knew they didn't. But they were worried about an audience, you see.
And anyway, it cemented your friendship with, Irving Berlin and Cole Porter?
And Cole Porter, yes.
Couldn't have met two better men.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Shall we have your second record there?
Well, now, it's away from all that, and we've come to London because I'm going to have Cleo, Laine and John Dankworth. Cleo's singing April in Paris.
Why do you want that?
Well, because I've known Cleo and John since 1962, and I just love her singing. But not all of her sort of thing. I like her just singing.
April in Paris, chestnuts in blossom, holiday tables under the trees. April in Paris, this is a feeling no one can ever reprise. I never knew the charm of spring, never met it face to face. I never knew my heart could sing, never missed a warm embrace till April in Paris. Whom can I run to? What have you done to my heart?
Cleo Laine with John Dankworth on clarinet and April in Paris. Let's go back, Elisabeth, to the very beginning, to the early part of this century in New York on West 63rd Street. Tell me what life was like there.
Oh, well, I grew up there. I loved it. I was a very busy little person because I was teaching Sunday school kids when I was about 10 or 11. And they were about 6 and 7, you see. And I was feeling very grown up. And then I used to do little shows. I realize now, only in the last 2 or 3 years, when people are after me about my past, that I remember all these things. And I must have been born with the desire to be in show business, because I used to do productions in our little settlement next door to the church, you see. I'm an Episcopalian, as we say in America.
And your mother was white and your father was black?
Yes. Well, he was mixed Negro and American Indian.
And your mother was what
Scots.
nationality? Was that quite rare then, that mixed marriage?
Yes. She's told me in later years, you know, she must have had some trouble.
And it was quite a religious household, as you say, I mean, with this connection with the church and the
Well,
social
yes.
work.
My father was Baptist. I mean, that's why he hated me, because his quote was, I was called Girlie at home. Girl is on the boards. She's lost.
Why did he object to you doing that?
Because he was
so much?
Baptist. I mean, in those days, I mean, nobody went on the stage. He thought that they were just old women that sold them, you know, the usual old Victorian type of...
Well, he thought it was akin to prostitution.
Well, of course.
And didn't it cause the breakup of your parents'
It
marriage?
did in the end, yes.
Why was that?
Well, because he couldn't take it. He didn't, you see, my father didn't live home. He lived in Jersey. We were brought up in New York, because he was a head gardener and coachman for an enormous estate, you know. And as a matter of fact, that was where my mother where they met, because she was a assistant nanny. That's how she came from Leith in Edinburgh.
But she was all for your career on the stage. Was she encouraged you?
Well, she wasn't encouraging, but I knew that she liked, and she's told me, you know, after we grew up, when she could tell me, that she was quite pleased, because she wanted me to sing.
Let's have your third record.
Well, now I want to hear my old friend Mabel Mercer singing one of my favourites. I even sing it myself, called Little Girl Blue. I'll need that when I get a little upset or something, for soothing.
Sit there and count your fingers. What can you do? Old girl, you're through. Sit there and count your little fingers. Unlucky little girl blue. Sit there and count the raindrops falling on you. It's time you knew. All you can count on is the raindrops that fall on little girl blue. No use, old girl, you might as well surrender. Your hopes are getting slender. Why won't somebody send a tender blue boy to cheer a little girl blue?
Mabel Mercer singing Little Girl Blue. She was a friend, was she?
Oh, a great friend of mine. She was one of the first people I met when I went to Paris in 1929.
But she was British, of course.
Oh, yes, she was born here near Manchester. We used to laugh and say that she became the big thing in New York, you see. And, well, I didn't say I was a big thing, but I became popular here in England.
But of course, it was when you were 19 or 20, I think, that you went to Paris, first of all, didn't
Yes.
you? And you were in cabaret there, yes?
No, I went over with Blackbirds, actually, first, you see. It was called the Blackbirds, Lou Leslie's Blackbirds of 1928. And I was in the choir, which is the way I got into show business, through the choir, being in the choir in the church. And it didn't shock them so much, you see, when they heard, oh, Elisabeth's in the choir, you see.
And what did Elizabeth think of Paris when she got there?
Oh, I adored it, absolutely adored it. I lived near the Moulin Rouge where we were playing, you see. And I got to learn how to drink, properly, of course. I was drinking port at that time, you see, because I didn't dare drink spirits. And one made friends. That's how I made friends with a lot of the girls of the street, because you meet them in the bars, and they were so nice, you know.
You started singing in a restaurant, didn't you?
No, it was a nightclub. It was run by a most marvellous person called Moïse. And he used to say, Elisabeth, he said, you must call me your grandmama. And I adored him and he adored me. And he was the one that gave me my first job from being in the Blackbirds. And I sang at his original place called the Boeuf sur le Toit, which became, of course, a very, very famous boîte. And
It's very chic. Was it
very
not designed by Jean Cocteau?
Yes, he designed it. He gave it the name, actually.
What did it look
The
like?
Boeuf sur le Toit. Well, it was just a little room, but he designed the marble entrance, and he had this bull on the roof, you see, and just the Boeuf sur le Toit. It was a mad thing, but I mean, Cocteau was mad in a wonderful way, you see.
And you used to sing to them while they dined?
I started singing there at the cocktail hour, and that was very fashionable in the late 20s and early 30s, you see. And everybody sort of went someplace for a cocktail, you see. And all the grand people came there.
Who else? Who came?
Well, Gertrude Stein, that ilk, what we would call here the Bloomsbury set. They were all the writers, the intellectuals, the philosophers, the theatre people and all that sort of thing. Picasso, that's of course where I met him, yes.
Did you mix with them as well as singing to them?
Well, occasionally you sat at a table with them because you become Elisabeth, you know, because more used to say my daughter or my granddaughter to bring me on, you see.
It was obviously a wonderful time.
Absolutely, except when you're in it, you don't realise how marvellous it is. It's only afterwards that you realise you've been in a wonderful era.
And an awful long way from West 63rd.
Amen.
Some more music, I think.
Well, now, dear Beatrice Lillie, an old friend of mine, she's like the others, gone. We were talking about Mabel. Mabel's gone, and now here comes B. Anyhow, B, I wanted to sing that wonderful, marvellous party that she went to.
I went to a marvellous party with Nunu and Nada and Nell. It was in the fresh air. And we went as we were, and we stayed as we were, which was hell. Poor Grace started singing at midnight, and she didn't stop singing till 4. We knew the excitement was bound to begin when Laura got blind on Giovanni and gin and scratched her pannier with a Cartier pin. I couldn't have liked it more. I've been to a marvelous party. I must say the fun was intense. We all had to do what the people we knew would be doing 100 years hence. Dear Cecil arrived wearing armor, some shells and a black feather boa. Poor Millicent wore a surrealist comb, made of bits of mosaic from St. Peter's in Rome. But the wait was so great that she had to go home. I couldn't have liked it more.
Beatrice Lillie singing Noel Coward's A Marvellous Party. Do you know all the words, Elizabeth?
Not all.
But you march around singing it, I should think.
Occasionally, yes.
So you'd been a hit in New York and in Paris by the age of 24, and you arrived then in London. I think that was 1933.
That's right.
And you've been here ever since.
I had already signed in Paris to do Nympharent for Cochrane, Charles B. Cochrane. But that wasn't until August rehearsals, you see. And so then they asked me, a group were coming over from Paris to do a review at the Leicester Square Theatre, which then was a musical theatre. Dear old Jack Buchanan's theatre it was, and he lived up at the top. And we did a review there called Dark Doings. And I had to ask Cochrane's permission because I'd signed to come later. And he said, where is it for, Elisabeth? And I said, it's at the Leicester Square Theatre. And it's a 4 shows a day review. Oh, he said, that's nothing to do with the West End. Of course you can come.
That was the one that was Stormy Weather.
That's right. That's where I'd introduced Stormy Weather.
But the song that Cole Porter wrote for you, Solomon, was for Nympharent.
That's right, yes.
But there are not many women who could claim that Cole Porter wrote a song for them.
Oh, well, he wrote the whole show for Gertie, you see. And he'd known about me because I didn't know him when I was singing Love for Sale in New York. But I met him when I came to Paris because he asked to see me. And so then a year later, when he was writing the show for Gertie, he had a harem scene in it, and he called me up and said, would I come and see him? He had an idea for a song, and so he wrote that for me. So it followed from Love for Sale, really.
But that was the one that stopped the show, wasn't it?
Well, I'm not to say that.
Well, I can say that. I mean, one critic wrote, and I've got it written down here, she bawled a number which stopped the show.
That was James Agate in the Sunday Times. As a matter of fact, I was livid because he said she bawled. I don't bawl, I sing. Of course, I did bawl.
But he meant it as a compliment.
I know he did.
But you
didn't
upstaged.
matter.
You upstaged Gertrude Lawrence just a weeny bit.
No, not really, no.
But then Stormy Weather, which you say came around that time, I mean, you had a hit with that a second time around about 10 years ago, didn't you?
Of course, you mean in Derek Jarman's film The Tempest? Oh, yes, we had a lot of fun doing that.
But it won you a whole new audience, didn't it?
Yes, it did, because, a film extends. I mean, you don't just sit in the West End.
But do you take note of the age range of your audiences? I mean, you do actually go on appealing to younger generations, don't you?
I suppose some of the joys of my life is when I'm singing someplace and people come back to see some of your old friends, but most of them, these youngsters who didn't know names or didn't know titles and didn't know songs, didn't know even the composers, and it sometimes makes me cry because it's so emotionally overwhelming, you know, that these youngsters sort of 16, 17, up to 20, sort of adoring you, and you can't but feel it, you know.
Record number 5.
Now I must have Mary Ellis and remind me of Ivor Novello in Glamorous Night, singing Waking and Sleeping. That would be lovely.
Waking or sleeping, my thoughts are of you. Though saddened with weeping, my love shines through. Seas may divide us, our lives blend
Mary Ellis singing Waking and Sleeping from Ivor Novello's Glamorous Nights. You knew Paul Robeson, I think, in the 30s, didn't you, Elizabeth?
Oh, yes.
How did you two get on?
Oh, wonderfully. I had absolutely adored him. I first met him when they called me up from the studios in Abbey Road and said, would I come out and sing a song with Paul Robeson? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, he's doing a record session and there's one that needs a woman's voice in it. And could you come out this afternoon? And that's how I met Paul. And they said, Elizabeth Welch, this is Paul Robeson, this is Elizabeth Welch, she's going to sing Ah Still Suits Me, which was one of Jerome Kern's songs that he'd stuck in one of there were about 2 or 3 different films of Showboat. And Paul said it'll be quite all right. But I must tell you, first of all, as I came into the studio, we had never met. And he said, oh, my dear, you see, and hugged me and almost killed me because it was like a great big bear, you know. He didn't realize it. And immediately there was a rapport, and I adored him, absolutely adored him.
Did he ever attempt to politicize you?
Oh, indeed. That was when we were doing the film, you see, The Song of Freedom. It was during the summer. And we used to sit out at lunch on the lawn and chat. And, of course, his son was in Moscow, being schooled there. He was about 8 or 9, 10 years old. And he started talking about the son and so forth. And then he said to me one day, he said, Elizabeth, why don't you stand up for your people? You're a name, and you could do... I said, what people, Paul? I got too many people. I've got Negro and American Indian, Scots and Irish. And so which ones? You see, it was only a get out, you see. He roared with laughter and we never mentioned it again.
But I wonder why you didn't feel that. I mean, you'd come from a poor black community. I mean, didn't you feel that you could stand
No,
up?
I came from a poor black community, but it was like Soho. I mean, we were mixed. The biggest amount of people there were Irish. The second amount were Italians, and the third amount were the Negroes, you see. And then we mixed up the Swiss and the Germans and everything else, and it was a marvelous neighborhood. I never felt that I was different than anybody else. I refused, maybe.
What you had in those years that we're talking about, and indeed still have, Elisabeth, is an ability to communicate very quickly with your audience. I mean, give you a spotlight and a sympathetic pianist and you can walk on and communicate very easily. Is that the magic for you? Is that what you love?
Well, everybody always asks me that. I don't know, because I stand in the wings absolutely shivering. And until I walk into that spot, then I know that I belong to those who are there. And I just give them what I've got, that's all.
Do you still today, when you go out on the stage, do you still feel that magic, that thrill of communication?
I go on nervous. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I know that. But as soon as I start singing, you feel warmth, you feel friendliness, that's what you feel, and that's how you can go on. And when you go off and you go get a nice applause, it's a thing you feel you've done. It was your job to do, and you've been accepted and thanked.
Some more music.
Now, let's see. Oh, I got to have Peggy Lee, because I've adored her for years. I love her singing. And this is a rather tricky one. Don't Smoke in Bed. I must say, if I had a match, I wouldn't bother about smoking in bed. I'd bother about signaling to get a ship to come and get me off this island.
I left a note on his dresser and my old wedding ring with these few goodbye words. How can I sing goodbye, oh sleepyhead? I'm packing you in, like I said. Take care of everything. I'm leaving my wedding ring. Don't look for me. I'll get ahead. Remember, darling, don't smoke in bed.
Peggy Lee singing Don't Smoke in Bed. What do you sing to yourself, Elisabeth, as you tootle around the house? What sort of music do you find yourself humming?
Well, I'm always humming or whistling. It could be a hymn. I can sing a song from the 20s. I can sing a song from today. It's mostly a hum and an occasional phrase.
And a whistle.
And a whistle, of course, you see, which my father hated, because he used to say, a whistling girl and a crowing hen never comes to a good end. But hen and end didn't rhyme, but that was his spiel.
Have you got a remarkable memory for lyrics?
Amazing. The older they are, the better I remember them. It's the newer ones that I forget.
So we have this image of you meandering along the beach on the desert islands, singing a bit of Gershwin or a church anthem.
But I do want to be rescued, and I will hate being on that island.
But you live alone, don't you? I mean, you're good at being alone.
I love being alone, yes, but I don't want to be on an island. I like a telephone there.
You obviously adore company. Do you enjoy a night on the town still?
Oh, sure. Okay, I don't go to cabarets and things like that. I'm too old for that. I go to friends, for dinner or something.
You're a night bird.
I am indeed. I've had trouble. My mother had trouble with me all my life. I mean, I wouldn't wake up in the morning to go to school. She used to have to put a cold face cloth on me sometimes to get me up. And then, of course, I wouldn't go to bed at night.
And is that still true today?
Indeed.
Number 7. What's that?
Well, I adore this number. I've had it since he ever produced it. It's only on a 45 record, but it's called Where Do You Go To, My Lovely? And it's Peter Sarstedt.
Where do you go to, my lovely? when you're alone in your bed. Tell me the thoughts that surround you. I want to look inside your head, yes I do. I remember the back streets of Naples, two children begging in the rags, both touched with a burning ambition to shake off their lowly born takes. They tried. So look into my face, Marie Claire, and remember just who you are. Then go and forget me forever. But I know you still bear the scar deep inside, yes you do. I know where you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed. I know the thoughts that surround you, 'cause I can look inside your head.
Peter Sarstedt, and Where Do You Go To, My Lovely? I suppose you never stole a painting from Picasso, Elisabeth.
No, indeed. No, indeed.
Would that you had.
Would that I had, right.
You just completed, I think, quite a heavy year by the look of it, cabaret and one-woman shows and so on. What's now in your professional diary?
Very little, which I'm not unhappy about, because it keeps my nerves from flaring up, so I'm calm at this time, because I'm not going to do anything particularly until next year.
But you don't run out of steam patiently. Is there any one moment in your long career, 65 years or more on the stage or in cabaret, is there one moment that you would single out that was most memorable for you?
I do think that meeting with Berlin and Getz and Monty Woolley was an important time in my life.
That was the turning point, really, of it all.
Yes. Because I was floating at that time, and I've never looked ahead, and I've never. People don't believe me, but I swear to goodness it's true. I've never looked ahead or wanted to be, or I've admired people, but I've never wanted to be like them.
Have you ever married, Elisabeth?
Yes, I was married when I was on my 18th birthday, against everybody's will, and it lasted until I was 18 and 5 months. And my mother and father, well, my father had gone by then, but my mother was very pleased, and so was everybody, including the priest that married me.
What, pleased that it broke up?
Yes.
And you've never married again?
No, thank you.
But you must have had a few offers in your time.
Oh, I have, I know, but I mean, we get over that.
What, you just say no?
In a nicer way than just saying no.
Well, now, let's have a look, before we get to your last record. I mean, you've paid tribute to Sondheim in this programme, and to Peter Sarstedt just now. I mean, is there anyone else, do you think, writing today who could rival those great songwriters of your time?
That's a tricky question, because I don't think there is. There are people. There must be, but I don't want to make enemies.
Well, I wonder why they came in such bulk in your time, those people.
Wasn't it extraordinary? Yes. I often think that. I wonder why. And I don't know. It must have been part of the times, except this is an exciting time too, except it's not so, we're not so settled now, I think.
But what do you think was their inspiration? Why then?
I don't know. I've often wondered myself why they were born at that time, all these people, the Berlins and Rodgers and Hart, I mean, and Rodgers, after Hart died, comes Hammerstein, you know. I mean, it was fantastic.
And the Gershwins.
And the Gershwins and the Cole, the Noble Coward, I mean, you know, it's
phenomenal.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And stuff that's still being produced day after day after day and appreciated by audiences.
So your favourite of all of them, you said, was Cole Porter?
Oh, well, it'd have to be, because he was nearest to me, really.
And what about your all-time favourite singer?
I don't ever dare say who's my favourite, except maybe I should say Frank Sinatra, let's face it.
Should you?
Yes.
And you couldn't go to your desert island without him?
Not indeed. That would be the one I would take with me if I had to take one. It would, and particularly just singing just one of those things, you know.
Which is Cole Porter.
Yes, again, you see. And also I hope that this saga of the island will be just one of those things.
It was just one of those things, just one of those crazy flings, one of those bells that now and then rings, just one of those things. It was just one of those nights, just one of those fabulous flights, a trip to the moon on gossamer wings, just one of those things. If we thought of it, about the end of it, when we started painting the town, we'd have been aware that our love affair was too hot not to cool down. So goodbye, dear, and amen. Here's hoping we'll meet now and then. It was great fun, but it was just one of those things.
Oh, bless them.
Frank Sinatra singing Cole Porter's Just One of Those Things. So that's the top of your 8. That's the one you'd take with you, Elisabeth,
Indeed,
isn't it?
indeed.
Now, what about a book? What sort of book would you like to take with you?
Yeah, I don't know how long I'm going to be on this island, so I'd like to take Who's Who in the Theatre.
What are you going to do with Who's Who in the
Well, you flip through it and you say, oh, there's so-and-so, and you remember them and you read about them and you think of times you've either known them or been with them or not known them and seen them and that sort of thing. It's full of interest. It's a Bible.
Well, you already have, of course, the
Yeah,
Bible,
but this is
and
the
you've got
theatre Bible.
the complete works of Shakespeare as well. I'm sure I'm not supposed to let you have some kind of reference book, but I shall say yes.
Thank you very, very
How
much.
can I say no? And a luxury, what should that be?
I'd take my mama's photograph with me because I talk to her a lot.
Do you?
Yes.
What do you talk to her about?
Anything.
Everything.
Yeah. I just look at her and talk.
What was her name?
Elisabeth. Yeah. With an S, that's why we're an S.
How long ago did she die?
Oh, she died in 54.
But you still keep her photograph with you?
Oh, right. Always travel with it. And it's just by my bed. And I talk to her every evening before I go. Every night, every morning, rather, before.
Before you go to sleep?
Just to say hello. Because I like to feel her around.
Elisabeth Welch, thank you very much indeed for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
Thank you.